Greetings, movie enthusiasts. In today's installment, we're delving into the captivating world of Passengers, a sci-fi romance drama that graced our screens in 2016. Brace yourselves as we embark on a journey through this thrilling tale, but beware, spoilers lie ahead. So, buckle up and get ready for a cinematic adventure like no other. As the narrative unfolds, we find ourselves amidst the vast expanse of space, witnessing the majestic interstellar spaceship Avalon on its arduous journey to the distant world of Homestead 2. A burgeoning colony, the ship cuts an imposing figure as it glides silently through the void, its quarters empty and its 258 crew members and 5,000 passengers encased in hibernation pods. Their lives temporarily pause. The ship's autopilot feature ensures a smooth and uninterrupted voyage as it navigates the treacherous depths of space. However, peace is short-lived as Avalon suddenly finds itself in the midst of an asteroid belt, its shields straining under the onslaught. In a race against time, power is diverted to bolster the main shield, but fate has other plans. Inevitably, the ship collides with a colossal asteroid, resulting in widespread malfunctions. As the automated systems kick in, initiating self-repair protocols, an unexpected development unfolds. One of the hibernation pods activates prematurely, setting the stage for a story of isolation, survival, and unexpected connections. The mysterious awakening unfolds, and we are introduced to Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer who finds himself abruptly ripped from the depths of suspended animation. As his pod opens, an automated system gently guides him through the disorienting process of reanimation, revealing the staggering truth: he has slept for a century and 2 decades, and the ship is mere months away from reaching its destination, Homestead 2. Jim is assured that he will have ample time to indulge in the luxurious amenities the ship has to offer. He receives meticulous instructions regarding his ID band, his assigned cabin, and the activities he can partake in during the remaining journey. A mix of excitement and nervousness bubbles within him as he anticipates meeting his fellow travelers. Donning a slightly anxious expression, Jim immerses himself in an automated classroom, where a hologram instructor elucidates the situation on Earth, depicting it as a place of overpopulation, exorbitant prices, and overrated experiences. Impatient to find answers, Jim interrupts the lesson with queries about the absence of other people, only to realize that the hologram is incapable of providing the answers he seeks. Driven by curiosity and a growing sense of unease, he embarks on a quest to find other conscious beings aboard the ship. With a sense of mounting anticipation, Jim ventures into the heart of the ship, the main concourse. The vast space echoes with emptiness, but an automated informational desk, a sentinel of synthetic hospitality, offers its assistance. Jim, driven by the innate human desire for connection, requests to speak to a real person, a plea for tangible companionship in the midst of his solitary surroundings. He is directed to seek out a steward, only to find that this, too, is an automated facade. Undeterred, he persists, his voice tinged with determination and a hint of desperation, and asks to speak to the captain, seeking answers in a shred of human interaction. With a growing sense of desperation, Jim makes his way to the nerve center of the ship, the bridge. Despite his lack of access, he peers inside, only to find that the main crew remains dormant, their hibernation pods silent sentinels. His hopes dashed, Jim retreats to the observatory, where a grim realization awaits. The ship is not months, but decades away from reaching Homestead 2, a full 90 years. The weight of his premature awakening crushes him as he grasps the lonely truth of his situation. In a panic, he rushes back to the concourse, desperately seeking guidance. He sends a pleading message to Earth, asking for instructions on how to re-enter hibernation, his voice laced with anguish. However, the response time shatters his already fragile hope, a soul-crushing 55 years. Devastated, Jim wanders aimlessly, his footsteps leading him to the ship's bar, a sanctuary of sorts. It is here, amidst the simulated warmth of the setting, that he lays eyes on another person, the bartender. As they converse, Jim notices something peculiar, a strangeness that sets the bartender apart. In a moment of revelation, he realizes the bartender is an android, an artificial companion named Arthur. Driven by a need for answers, Jim seeks to extract information from Arthur, but his attempts are thwarted by his inability to explain the anomaly of his early awakening. The dawn of a new day finds Jim awakening in the confines of his cabin, a weighty realization settling upon him as he ventures into the canteen. It becomes apparent that the majority of the menu items are reserved for the exclusive enjoyment of gold-class passengers, a reminder of his limited access. He settles for a plain cup of coffee, his thoughts turning to the daunting task of rectifying his premature awakening. Armed with tools scavenged from the ship, Jim sets to work on his hibernation chamber, determined to find solace in slumber once more. However, his efforts prove futile, as the chamber remains unresponsive to his attempts at repair. Undeterred, he turns his attention to the crew's hibernation chambers, hoping to find respite in their functionality. Yet, fate deals him another blow, as his endeavors amount to naught. Small malfunctions begin to plague the ship, subtle reminders of the isolation surrounding Jim. He finds solace in the company of Arthur, the android bartender, returning to the bar not only for drinks, but for the comfort of conversation. Guided by Arthur's advice, Jim embarks on a journey of self-discovery, breaking into one of the gold-class rooms and embracing the myriad amenities the ship has to offer. He indulges in the restaurants, games, and entertainment systems. But as time wears on, the loneliness creeps in, and the weight of his solitary existence becomes ever more burdensome. In a haze of intoxication, Jim's footsteps lead him on a meandering path through the hibernation pods, until he stumbles upon an unexpected haven, an airlock chamber housing spaces designed for extravehicular exploration. Driven by a mix of curiosity and impulsivity, he dons one of the suits and maneuvers himself into the airlock. With a push of a lever and the press of a button, the airlock door slides open, revealing the vastness of space beyond. Stepping through the threshold, Jim finds himself enveloped in a panorama unlike any other. The solitude of his existence takes on a new dimension as he becomes acutely aware of his unique perspective. He is the only conscious human being bearing witness to this moment in the vast expanse of time and space. The stars stretch before him, a mesmerizing display that serves as a stark reminder of his singular experience. In a moment of profound despair, Jim releases the magnets on his boots, allowing himself to float freely in the vastness of space, his thoughts consumed by the weight of his circumstances. He returns to the airlock, removes his suit, and finds himself drawn back to the threshold, lever in hand, contemplating an irreversible decision. In a fleeting moment of hesitation, he reconsiders, rushing back into the safety of the ship, only to slip and fall, a stark reminder of his vulnerability. As he stands, his gaze falls upon a woman encased in one of the hibernation pods, her name Aurora. Intrigued, he delves into the ship's directory, uncovering her passenger interview, and finds himself enamored by her essence. He lingers by her pod, listening to her words, a captive audience to her story. Back in the familiar confines of the bar, he pores over her written works, engaging in discourse with Arthur about her writing. The irony of his situation is not lost on him, the pursuit of a better life on a distant planet, only to be awakened prematurely. And now, the discovery of his ideal woman, so tantalizingly close yet utterly out of reach. Jim's obsession grows, and with it, the seed of an idea takes root to wake Aurora. He confides in the android, seeking guidance. But Arthur, unable to comprehend the complex conundrum, offers no solace. The moral dilemma weighs heavily on Jim's conscience, the knowledge that waking Aurora would condemn her to the same fate as his, stranded and facing an inevitable death on the ship. Initially, he resists the temptation, but as time wears on, the idea takes root in his mind, a nagging voice that refuses to be silenced. Eventually, he succumbs, making his way to her pod with a heavy heart. With deft hands, he activates it, witnessing her emergence from the depths of hibernation, and reliving the disorienting process he once experienced. Retreating into the shadows, he hides, his heart racing as he returns to his room, awaiting their inevitable encounter. As they cross paths in the main concourse, Jim approaches her, his expression a mixture of empathy and apprehension. He relays the stark reality of their situation. They are the only ones awake, adrift in a sea of hibernating souls. Leading her to the observatory, he reveals the extent of their isolation, explaining his inability to access the crew or the main commands of the ship. Aurora's reaction is one of panic and denial, her instincts urging her to retreat to the perceived safety of her pod. At her pod, Jim delivers the crushing blow. There is no specialized equipment on board that can return them to hibernation, confirming their grim predicament. They return to the concourse, and Jim, mindful of her recent awakening, suggests she rest and acclimate to their new reality. Aurora's heart softens as she contemplates the loneliness Jim has endured during his solitary sojourn on the ship. His actions weigh on his conscience, and he retreats to the familiar confines of the bar, seeking solace in the company of Arthur. In a moment of vulnerability, he requests that the android keep his secret, asking him to refrain from revealing that he was the one responsible for Aurora's premature awakening. As the sun rises on a new day, Aurora awakens, her thoughts turning to the mysteries of the hibernation pods. She seeks answers from the automated info desk, her curiosity mirroring Jim's initial inquiries. Their paths converge once more, and together, they embark on a breakfast excursion. However, their departure is marked by a malfunction at the info desk, a subtle reminder of the ship's gradual decline. In the canteen, Aurora's keen observation leads her to realize the monotony of Jim's breakfast routine, and with a gesture of kindness, she presents him with one of the coveted gold-class menus. Their conversation delves into the possibility of repairing the pods, but their perspectives diverge. Aurora, unlike Jim, refuses to succumb to despair. Her determination shines through as she embarks on a quest for solutions, scouring the infirmary, delving into research documents, and ultimately, attempting to force her way into the crew's hibernation quarters. Meanwhile, Jim bears witness to the increasing malfunctions plaguing the ship, each glitch a harbinger of potential disaster. In moments of introspection, Aurora reflects on her life aboard the Avalon, her words carrying a weight of emotion. Aurora's days take on a rhythm, she writes, her words flowing from experiences unique to their situation. She jogs around the ship, her footsteps echoing in the vast corridors. She swims in the pool, the solitude of their journey surrounding her. Her awareness of their shared plight grows with each passing moment. Intent on uncovering Jim's story, she arranges an interview in the canteen, intrigued by the prospect of chronicling his unique journey. In response to her query about his motivation for immigrating to the colony, Jim offers company slogans at first, but soon delves deeper, revealing his aspirations for a fresh start and the hope of building a life where he could become somebody. Their paths converge once more in the observatory, a sanctuary amidst the stars, and it is here that Aurora, in a moment of vulnerability, shares her own reason for boarding the Avalon. She divulges her plan to live on Homestead for a year before returning to Earth, intent on becoming the first journalist to undertake such a journey and capture the greatest story ever told. As the days turn to weeks, Aurora gradually accepts the reality of their situation, her initial determination to find a solution giving way to resignation. Sensing her despair, Jim resolves to lift her spirits, determined to bring a smile to her face. Jim, determined to bring joy into Aurora's life, orchestrates a series of activities designed to lift her spirits. Peaks are dancing, their movements graceful and fluid in the absence of gravity, to the cinema, where they lose themselves in the illusion of another world, and to the basketball court, their laughter echoing through the vastness of the ship. The culmination of their adventures leads them to the bar, where Aurora is introduced to the enigmatic Arthur. She relaxes into the familiar surroundings, momentarily forgetting the weight of their circumstances. As Jim is left alone with the android, the gravity of his actions settles upon him, and he is consumed by guilt. In an attempt to bring levity into Aurora's life, he tinkers with a miniature replica of the Chrysler Building, crafted with care. Aurora, drawn to the observatory, discovers his thoughtful gift, her face lighting up at the sight of it. Their courtship continues with a date at the bar, where they indulge in a romantic dinner, sharing stories of their lives before their fateful meeting. Aurora reveals the loss of her father during her teenage years, a wound that runs deep. The dinner marks a turning point, as Jim invites Aurora to join him in a spacewalk, an experience he had once cherished alone. Together, they don the spacesuits and step into the airlock, their excitement palpable. The vastness of space envelops them as they venture outside the ship, the stars their backdrop. Jim, overjoyed to finally have a companion, switches off the magnets on their boots, allowing them to float together, weightless and intertwined. Their return inside sparks a spontaneous kiss, leading them to retreat to the sanctuary of his cabin, their connection deepening as they surrender to their desires. In the days that follow, they embrace the comfort of coupledom. Aurora moves into his cabin, documenting their life aboard the ship through writing. They jog in unison, their footsteps falling into a familiar rhythm. They share meals, their conversations spanning the breadth of their experiences, and they find solace in each other's embrace, their love, a beacon in the darkness of their isolation. Driven by a sense of exploration, Jim ventures deeper into the ship, his footsteps leading him to the hydroponics bay, where he gathers flowers as a token of his affection for Aurora. On this particular day, the ship passes by a red giant star, a celestial spectacle that draws them to the observatory. It is also Aurora's birthday, a milestone they commemorate with a celebration in one of the ship's many restaurants, followed by drinks at the bar. As Jim briefly excuses himself to the washroom, he takes the opportunity to prepare the ring he crafted for Aurora, a symbol of his devotion. Unbeknownst to him, Aurora's conversation with Arthur takes an unexpected turn. In his naivete, the android reveals Jim's secret that he intentionally woke Aurora, unaware that this information was meant to be kept hidden. Jim's return coincides with Aurora's shocking discovery, and she confronts him, her disbelief turning to fury and panic. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she flees, leaving Jim alone with his thoughts and the remnants of their celebration. He returns to their shared cabin, only to find her belongings gone, the space devoid of her presence. The tension between them lingers, and their paths inevitably cross in the canteen the following day. However, Aurora's pain is raw, and at the sound of Jim's voice, she flees once more, her heart unable to bear the confrontation. Consumed by anguish, Aurora grapples with her emotions, her actions driven by desperation. In a fit of rage, she storms into Jim's cabin, her fists and feet lashing out, driven by the desire to inflict pain as retribution. Jim, his voice calm amidst the storm, attempts to apologize and explain his actions, confessing the depth of his love for her. But Aurora's wounds are fresh, and she cannot bring herself to forgive him for upending her life. As Jim retreats to the solitude of his cabin one night, the ship experiences another malfunction, this time a critical error that results in the shutdown of the main command. The malfunctions continue, affecting the elevator, further destabilizing their sense of security. Aurora, in her own exploration of the ship, discovers a tree planted by Jim in the main concourse, a symbol of life amidst their mechanical surroundings. Her curiosity leads her to the canteen, where she finds the food dispensary malfunctioning, adding to the growing list of system failures. Their tranquil moment is abruptly interrupted by the voice of the deck chief over the comms, demanding to know who planted the tree. Together they rush into the concourse and come face to face with Gus Mancuso, standing before Jim's tree, a silent sentinel. Aurora and Jim introduce themselves to the deck chief, Gus Mancuso, relaying the series of events that led them to their current predicament. Mancuso is perplexed by the failure of 3 hibernation pods, a conundrum that defies explanation. Taking them to the bridge, he discovers that something is amiss with the ship, but the information from the systems must be extracted manually, a tedious and time-consuming task. As they depart the bridge, a robot malfunctions, nearly falling on top of them, further emphasizing the severity and frequency of the malfunctions plaguing the ship. Mancuso, his voice laced with concern, acknowledges that such frequent failures should not be occurring, as he guides them through the process of collecting the necessary data. Jim joins Mancuso by the hibernation pods, his expression grave as he reveals the truth behind Aurora's premature awakening. The deck chief is taken aback by the revelation of Jim's actions, his disapproval evident. Later, Mancuso, feeling the weight of his responsibilities, retreats to the bridge to scrutinize the collected data, his eyes heavy with fatigue. Aurora joins him, seeking answers and a sense of closure regarding her pod. However, Mancuso, his voice tinged with regret, confesses that there is nothing he can do to rectify the situation. Jim enters, carrying yet another broken robot, the 16th in a growing collection. Mancuso, feeling the onset of hibernation sickness, decides to rest, but as he turns to leave, he coughs, revealing a chilling streak of blood. Rest eludes Aurora, her thoughts keeping her awake as she seeks solace in a late-night swim. Suddenly, the ship experiences a gravity loss, and the water from the pool begins to move with her, threatening to pull her under. In a desperate struggle, she fights against the currents, and just as she is on the brink of drowning, the gravity drive resets, granting her a second chance at life. The incident propels her to seek out Mancuso, her steps mirroring Jim's urgent pace. Together, they reconvene at the bridge, their collective minds working to unravel the mysteries plaguing the ship. Mancuso, through diligent analysis, uncovers that a major system failure occurred 2 years prior, taking out critical components. The ship, in a valiant effort to compensate, has been straining to maintain functionality, but the strain is taking its toll. They realize that if they do not identify and rectify the issue, the entire vessel and all those aboard will be stranded, adrift in the vastness of space. With a sense of urgency, they set out to locate the source of the problem, but their mission is abruptly halted as Mancuso falters, overcome by illness. Jim and Aurora, their concern mounting, take it upon themselves to escort Mancuso to the infirmary, their steps quickening with each passing moment. The grim reality of Mancuso's impending death settles upon them, and with it, the weighty knowledge that no treatments exist to halt the inevitable or prolong his time. In the face of their shared grief, the trio convenes in the observatory, a sanctuary amidst the chaos. Mancuso, his voice laden with gravity, passes on his ID bracelet to Jim, entrusting him with the task of repairing the ship. In a poignant moment, Mancuso takes his final breath, leaving them with the weight of their mission. The tranquility of the moment is abruptly shattered as the lights shift to an alarming red, accompanied by the ship shaking violently. Jim, his voice urgent, calls upon Aurora's assistance, and together, they race toward engineering, their footsteps echoing with determination. However, their journey is hindered by yet another failure in the gravity drive, the ship seemingly conspiring against their efforts. In quick succession, another malfunction strikes, this time affecting Arthur, rendering him unresponsive. With a heavy heart, Jim deactivates the android, a silent farewell. They press on, finally reaching engineering, their eyes scanning the complex machinery for any signs of the problem. Their search leads them to the power plant, and as they cautiously open the hatch, Aurora is suddenly sucked in, leaving Jim alone, his heart racing with fear. The asteroid strike, a lingering remnant of their earlier encounter, has caused a breach in the hull, its damage now apparent. Jim, too, is drawn toward the breach, his body succumbing to the force of the suction. With strength born of desperation, he clings to the hatch, his grip slipping as it repeatedly closes on him. Inevitably, he is pulled into the breach, his body momentarily suspended in the void. Quick thinking and swift action lead them to seal the breach, a temporary solution to a dire problem. However, Jim's keen eyes notice something amiss. There is more than one breach in the hull, the asteroid's impact far-reaching. Together, they follow the trajectory of the meteor, their hearts sinking as they realize the extent of the damage. The reactor control computer has been struck, its vital functions compromised. Hope flickers as Jim suggests the possibility of finding replacement parts. A glimmer of a plan taking shape. They locate the necessary component and meticulously make the change, their actions synchronized. However, their efforts are met with disappointment as the process of venting the reactor fails, the ship refusing to cooperate. Undeterred, they attempt a manual vent, but once again they are faced with failure. Jim's analytical mind pieces together the solution: the vent door must be opened from outside the ship to facilitate the cooling of the reactor. The airlock becomes their staging ground, their preparations marked by the gravity of the situation. As Jim readies himself for the perilous task, he passes Mancuso's bracelet to Aurora, a token of his affection and a reminder of his mortality. She assists him with the suit, her hand steady despite the tremble in her heart. With steady hands and a heart filled with worry, Aurora aids Jim in donning the spacesuit, her voice carrying a mixture of encouragement and trepidation. As she bids him farewell, her words echoing in the airlock come back. "Because I can't live on this ship without you." Her steps carry her back to the reactor, where the temperature has reached critical levels, the heat oppressive. A bolt from the reactor strikes her arm, a painful reminder of the urgency of their mission. Jim, outside the ship, nears the vent door, his eyes fixing on the solution to their dilemma. The temperature continues to rise in the reactor room, the heat becoming oppressive as he works to bypass the vent door. He soon realizes that the only way to succeed is to manually hold the door open, allowing the reactor to vent. He relays his plan to Aurora, his voice carrying a sense of determination despite her protests. She, driven by the fear of losing him, argues, her words laced with worry. Jim, steadfast in his resolve, reminds her of their responsibility to save the other passengers and crew. With a heavy heart, she acquiesces, initiating the venting process. The reactor responds, the fumes pushing Jim away, his tether snapping under the strain. The pressure in his suit begins to drop, a dangerous turn of events. He communicates the situation to Aurora, his voice calm despite the mounting peril. She, driven by love and desperation, moves with haste, donning another suit and setting out to bring him back to safety. With sincerity in his voice, Jim apologizes once more, his words carrying the weight of his actions. Aurora, driven by love and determination, suits up and ventures out to retrieve him, her movements hindered by the short length of her tether. The forces pull her back, but her resolve remains steadfast, and in a swift motion, she grabs onto his tether, pulling him toward her with all her might. She drags Jim into the infirmary, her heart racing as she discovers his lifeless body. Using Mancuso's bracelet, she overrides the medical protocols, determined to bring him back. The medical pod springs to life, its automated systems working in unison to resuscitate Jim. In a moment of vulnerability, Aurora forgives him, her love prevailing over their past differences. In the aftermath, Aurora, with her innate ingenuity, repairs Arthur, bringing back online. Together, they bid Mancuso a solemn farewell, giving him a proper space burial. Jim, his voice soft, reveals to Aurora that he has found a way to use the medical pod as a hibernation chamber, offering her the chance to sleep through the remainder of the journey. He asks her to trust him and enter the pod, but as the narrative unfolds, it is revealed that she declines, choosing instead to remain by his side, awake and present for their shared journey. Their love deepens, and in a heartfelt moment, Jim proposes, their bond sealed with a promise of forever. The years pass, and 88 years later, the Avalon arrives at Homestead 2, its crew awakening to a ship transformed by the passage of time. They are met with an unexpected sight, the story of Jim and Aurora, woven into the very fabric of the vessel. Aurora, in a heartfelt gesture, leaves behind a message, a retelling of the life she and Jim built aboard the Avalon while the rest of the world slept. Their love story, forever etched into the annals of the ship's history, serves as a testament to the power of human connection in the face of adversity. As the credits roll, the narrator encourages viewers to subscribe and enable notifications, inviting them to delve into more captivating stories like this one. With a final note of gratitude, the narrative concludes, leaving audiences with a sense of wonder and reflection.
Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. This helps us to continue. Our content is diverse and suitable for all categories.